Riverside Peated single
Our jam band's over here bringing us in for the night, but welcome everybody to doing our first ever Chattanooga barrel selection. This is some exciting stuff. We've been big fans of these guys down here in your bottom left side of the screen for quite a while now. We had them back on the podcast. I can't remember what episode it was ago. It's been a while, and we got to hear more about their story and their whiskey. And we'll introduce them here in a second. We'll also introduce we got somebody else that's sort of playing coming in and try to help us select this barrel tonight. Kevin, we'll bring him here in a minute. But Ryan, I don't know about you, man, but I poured myself a little bit of the Chattanooga 111, sort of primed up for what we're getting into tonight. What about you?
I did the same exact thing. I was watching Snoop Dogg and Joe Rogan.
That gets you primed up.
I kind of wanted to roll up a backwoods blunt and join tonight too. Sorry, guys.
Hey, we could, blunts and 111. Is that what it comes down to? Is that your new tagline?
It was amazing. He smoked like 3 of them in the first 30 minutes. I'm like, how is this possible? Sorry.
I can't even handle Delta 8.
Yeah, Delta 8s are good. They're nice and mellow.
I can't handle it.
Just like the Tennessee malt.
Well, let's go ahead and we'll introduce our guys here in the bottom left-hand corner. So you may have heard them on the podcast previously. We've got Tim and Grant from Chattanooga Whiskey. Fellas, thank you for kind of coming in and being some surprise guests for this.
Absolutely. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, it's our pleasure.
Grant, I heard it's
come a long way since the Kenny's Basement days.
Oh man, that was right before the shit hit the fan, as it were.
It was literally.
I think it was like It was like February or March of 2020.
That might have been like our first Zoom
in the last like social thing we ever
or whatever StreamYard, I should say.
A year straight.
Yeah,
amazing.
Whew. It has been a minute. But,
yeah.
I was talking to Tim earlier. Grant, you gonna be able to stay with us because I know that he said it might be past your bedtime.
Yeah, this is definitely.
Grant's asleep right now. Actually,
yeah. Me too, Grant. I struggled through these myself.
Well, the time change doesn't make it any easier either.
No, that's true. Yeah, it does feel much later right
now. Yeah, I know for a fact it's got to be late because we got Kevin over here and he's joining us from San Diego, and I can look out his windows and it's dark in San Diego right now.
Yeah,
so
true.
That's when I know the time change is real. So Kevin, welcome.
Welcome. San Jose, actually, about 8 hours north of San Diego.
Sorry, my bad. I got one. I got the sand part right.
The time change is weird. It feels like it's bedtime.
Oh, I know.
Except like 5:30.
The back.
5:30 rolls around. You're like, is it bedtime? You're like, nope, still got 4 or 5 hours. But
yep.
Well,
at least he's in San Jose, and blunts and 111 is technically legal out there, so it works. It works in his favor if that's gonna be the theme for the night.
That's right. I'm sure Grant Tim would love that.
We're whiskey only over here,
Yeah, for sure. Well, what we're going to do, so I'll kind of give everybody kind of a rundown of what we have in front of us, because Ryan and Kevin, I just sent you all samples that just say A, B, and C on them, and we'll kind of go in that order, A, B, and C, and we'll just kind of pour them into our glasses, and we'll kind of talk through them. And I'm glad that we've got Grant and Tim on here because they're going to be able to kind of go a lot more in depth about what's in each of these two. But kind of before we get there, what was the premise for actually starting the single barrel program? I remember last time we talked on the podcast, you said, well, maybe, but we weren't really trying to, that wasn't really like what we set off to do. So what kind of made you change your mind, or did you just have some extra barrels and you said, might as well do this?
Well, early on, you guys, after or around the time that we went up and sat down with you guys, which we really appreciated the invite and being able to sit down in person and make that trip up there, which Grant and I would, while I've enjoyed online living, I also appreciate the opportunity to sit down, come to your home and talk about, and, give us the opportunity to talk about our story. And you guys talked about a single barrel, I think around then. And while we try, our number one priority is to try and take care of, our accounts who have been longtime single barrel customers. When we launched Tennessee High Malt, we had a handful of people that reached out and were interested in it and gave us the opportunity to talk about it. You guys were one of them. And when you expressed an interest in a single barrel, I asked Grant if it was possible to set one aside for you guys. And honestly, he kind of surprised me. I didn't realize that we had set one aside for you guys until recently, and didn't know if we were going to be able to get it out this year. And so, it's cool surprise for all of us, I guess.
Well, good. I'm assuming you left the save the best barrels for the end of the year, and so this is all just the cherry stuff.
Yeah. I mean, so just to give you an idea where the single barrel program has been since we spoke, I guess that was like February or March of 2020. Our first year of single barrels was very account specific, I would say. Like it was for a lot of retailers. And that first year was really to describe what the 91 recipe was all about. So as you guys might, as some folks might be familiar with, our story really goes back to the experimental distillery from in 2015 when we opened it to 2017. We laid down about 100 barrels of whiskey. And in that time, we had to decide what we wanted the future of Chattanooga whiskey to be. And long story short, the 91st barrel in that first 100 barrel set became our signature 91 and 111 offering, kind of split off into two different expressions. And our first year of single barrels, we thought right at 3 years, they started to show really well as a single barrel, as a high proof, uncut kind of expression. And the first year of single barrels was all about peeling the layers back of the 91 recipe. So some folks might be familiar, but the 91 is made up of a couple different types of barrels. Charred barrels, more classic profile, and toasted and charred barrels, which are more of a sweet, more rich kind of expression. And it surprised us just how much folks liked one or the other, but both sides were getting kind of equal play. And that was kind of our first year to kind of showcase what 91 was all about. Well, this year, it's all about showcasing all the other recipes that were made in that group of 100. So we had a wheated high malt. We had smoked high malt doesn't come in here, but we had a peated recipe. We had what we call a stout at the time, but we call roasted now. We have the 91 recipe, of course. And then over the years, we've just kind of scaled up and continued on some of these recipes from the original experimental group. So what you have here is the second year of our single barrel program, and we are showcasing kind of the range of Tennessee high malt, more than just one specific recipe, which was 91. So what you're seeing here is actually, if you guys are familiar with our bottled and bond, is kind of a little tasting of some of the components that went into that expression. But now instead of 3 years old, we're 4 years old. So these single barrels were at a place where we felt like, beyond even retailers starting to reach out to you guys and set some aside for special little, moments like this, we thought would be cool. So we had a few stashed away. Long story short, there we are.
Right on.
Awesome.
Well, we'll get some more questions here in a minute. Let's kind of just kick this off so myself and Kevin and Ryan can kind of get drinking here. But
We're thirsty.
Yeah, I know. So I'll do my best since I know you all are blind with your samples A, B, and C. Would you want to know the profiles before you go into it, or should you want to save all that?
We'll save it for the end.
Save it for the end. Okay, so we'll save the mash bills towards the end and see which ones we all choose. But
show how flawed I am in guessing my flavors.
There's Jason with the mash and drum. What's up again, man? 2 nights in a row,
Maybe.
Back here with us. But Kevin, you ever done a barrel selection before?
I have, yeah.
Okay, well then, old hat to you. So just for anybody that's out there in YouTube land, typically what I do is I'll go through, nose them all first, and then start tasting, and that's sort of the process. But it's going to take a good 30 to 45 minutes to do it anyway. But guys, as you're nosing through and tasting through, feel free to jump out and say some tasting notes and stuff like that too.
How's my favorite city, Chattanooga, doing?
Man, it's great.
I love that place.
We are man, we're increasingly on the map, which it's kind of, if you talk to people that have been around in Nashville for a really long time, they'll tell you that they miss pre-Nashville, but I don't think Chattanooga's gotten anywhere close to that, but it is exploding. So but we're enjoying it.
Yeah, I always love visiting. It's one of my favorite. I hate big cities anymore. Like Nashville is too big. I went to Austin. I was like, it's too big. I miss Chattanooga. I want to go back there. I was expecting Austin to be like Chattanooga, and boy, is I wrong.
Kenny, you might lose Ryan at Chattanooga, bro.
I know. I think so. He's gonna have some beachfront property down there before we know it.
Beachfront Chattanooga, yeah, man. Beachfront
right on the horseshoe, in the river right there. What's that town up on the mountain? Lookout Mountain.
Lookout, yeah.
Yeah, it's got a good school district up there for the kids.
Well, yeah.
Maybe not.
No. They actually only have an elementary school. But
gotcha.
The school. Let's not get into the schools conversation in Chattanooga because it is really complicated.
I'll spare people.
Mm-hmm.
But let's not spare Mr. Shim some of the notes that he's always dying for, and just to kind of make sure that we can get this recorded, because I know that as soon as we select this, he always loves having these notes to be able to share with everybody else. But I'll tell you what, the nose on B I really like, because it feels mellowed out, and it's not as strong. And I'm assuming that these are all going to be bottled at cask strength. So what you're going to see here is what you're going to get.
I really like the nose on A. It kind of reminds me of like a smoked old fashioned or something on there.
Maybe it's because I'm still like
burnt orange peels.
I was kind of like still in a Halloween mood, but I almost get an almond joy on it.
I got chocolate for sure.
Actually, it is. Let's see.
It actually is an almond joy.
Mm-hmm. It's like a little bit of nutty, a little bit of chocolate, a little bit of coconut there.
But what kind of cereal does it smell like?
That's right.
Yeah. Is it Cocoa Puffs for me?
Hey, Evan, what's up, man? Glad to have you here.
I love comparing to cereals.
Well, the challenge is out there. We've got to pick a better barrel than what Blake did at Sealbox.
Oh, that's easy.
We're catching up. We're joining you guys on the.
It's all good.
We're pouring our samples right now.
B's like a little more fruit forward.
Yeah, as I say, fruit, definitely. Stone fruit. Plum.
Yeah, still digging the nose on A.
Yeah. A. Just say.
Gosh, it's like now I went through and I nosed them all real quick. When I had C, I was like, okay, this is like a little smoky. What I expected out of it. But now that I go back after doing A and B, it's a little bit more fruity than it was previously.
It's funny. I have three different glasses. 3 different style of glasses. I've got this guy.
We're pros.
Yeah, that's what to say. What kind of operation you all got going on down there?
This guy. We're on my front porch.
I was like, it looks like you're a cabana or something.
This guy, yeah. You got your traditional Glencairn, and then I've got 2 other fancy tasting glasses.
Yeah. Jason wants you to know he's sipping on your Solera barrel right now.
You what?
Said Jason from the Mash and Drum wants you to know he's sipping on your Solera barrel right now.
Oh, nice. I'm curious when he says that if he means the old 1816 Solera or if he means 91 Solera, because
he's probably mean
I think it probably means 91 Solera. Would be my guess.
So, while we're sitting
He's
here,
interesting. It's got like some dark raisin syrup and like some brown sugar, but then it kind of opens up into like a sassafras kind of licoricey, like almost kind of like bitters, like Angostura bitter kind of flavors. That's interesting.
well, I can tell you whether you're right or you're wrong because they sent these basically these heat maps. That's going to tell you what each one is. It's like looking at like an earthquake and kind of like figuring out exactly like where it's all hitting, like where's the fault lines at.
seismograph.
Yeah, your seismograph.
Yeah, so we basically took kind of like a average profile across all of these recipes, and our distilling team kind of threw out their descriptors for each recipe, and on average that's what we came up with. So don't be offended if we missed one.
I think that's the great thing about this anyways.
Exactly. It is
everybody's
remember, right?
Yeah.
So if I understand right, the single barrel program was the 100 barrels, and 91 was obviously the one you chose as like your staple, but you're recreating those 100 barrels every year, and that's what the single barrels are going to make. Okay, cool.
Yeah, so we scale up every year. We scale up a certain number of recipes to our Riverfront distillery, which is our bigger production facility. For a sense of scale, our experimental distillery makes about a barrel a week. And at this point, our Riverfront distillery makes about 32 barrels a week. So it really is a pretty big jump. So we have to be kind of picky about which recipes that we feel like express the range of this style that we have, this Tennessee high malt thing. And a handful of those recipes from the original 100, apart from that 91, got scaled up. And every year we're kind of scaling up a new few that we feel like make the cut, and we get the help, tasting wise from our entire team to kind of figure out what expresses that range best. So this was kind of that first. This is one of the very first years. This was the first year where we showcase what we scaled up to Riverfront.
Nice.
Yeah, and I thought what was pretty unique about this, I know we talked about it when we were on the podcast, and we kind of looked at each other and we were like, this might have been the craziest business scheme in history of trying to figure out what your mash bills were going to be and then finally landing on your 91st one out of 100. But now it's starting to prove pretty lucrative in the fact that when you all just released your latest Bottled and Bond series, where you were kind of, you correct me if I'm wrong, you were combining some of those different things and creating a completely unique expression that was kind of making the category, kind of starting to set it aside a little bit. I thought that was pretty awesome and really innovative of just trying to look at the Bottled and Bond category and seeing how can we do things just a little bit differently.
Yeah, thank you for that. I mean, that was definitely the goal. We tried to showcase what the range we thought was, and through a vintage expression each year, we're able to our goal isn't to keep it the same every season and year. Our goal is to kind of keep floating around where we think it can exist, and exist in a good way, like, so the spring was more fruit forward. It highlighted a little bit more of some of these recipes, and the fall was more like spice and dark fruit forward. So it highlighted different aspects of these recipes as well. So depending on the blending and the, barrel selection, our distillers really had a lot of freedom to express what we thought was going to be a different face of Tennessee high malt each vintage.
It's pretty fun too. I mean, just watching culturally our team come together over it and dive into the details and just kind of own, figure out their own likes and dislikes. We did a blind tasting of spring versus fall with our team, and just kind of watch what came out of that who preferred spring versus fall and why, in the discussion that took place over it. It just really, I don't know, it opens your mind to everybody's palates and how different they really are. And it's fun to watch the culmination of the experimentation of high, malt or malt forward bourbon come together. And really, to not to toot Grant's horn too much here, but he was really, I think, forward thinking on blending, and it's been interesting to watch blending come about over the last couple of years. And you're listening to more and more people speak about blending in really in a positive way, whereas 5 to 10 years ago it was really spoken about more in a negative way. And to watch how many different combinations we can kind of come up with or put together based on scaling. I mean, some of these recipes, my thought was, if we scale this, what the hell are we going to do with it? And Brent's, I mean, why I keep on saying Brent? Brent is my COO, and I'm combining Brent and Grant over here. Sorry.
Brent.
Yeah, Brent. And by the way, John and Dan are 2 sales directors. They're Jan. So
Jan the man.
It's a thing. So anyways, Grant was like, we're going to blend it. And at the time, and this is years ago, this is at the, we when we launched the experimental distillery, it was 2015. So, pushing 7 years ago, which was kind of just a very foreign concept for me. It was like, wait a minute, hold on. Blending is a bad thing, not a good thing, right? Like, and to watch what we've been able to come up with based on scaling so many of these recipes at Riverfront, and watch what we continue to come up with with our batches out of experimental, because we've now, I think we have done more than 360 experimental barrels. And we have, I think approximately a dozen releases a year between our single barrels and our batches. It's just been wild to watch what really the art of blending within our own operation has accomplished.
That's awesome. I mean, it's like I said, we've been tooting that horn now for a little bit, and I mean, don't get us wrong, we have our own product that we have blended, so of course we're going to toot that horn a little bit. But part of it is, we do sort of see that sort of new age starting to come about. So it's really cool to see.
Go ahead.
Well, I kind of wanted to get your all's thoughts on some of the tastes so far before we get too far down the rabbit hole of asking questions over here. I want to get Kevin over. Kevin's been quiet. I want to get some Kevin action here.
I'm definitely with you, Kenny. I feel like C has kind of a like a charred, smoky, almost like a peated Scotch type nose, and I'm getting kind of that peated. It's not strong. It's very faint, but it kind of has that peated Scotch like note.
Well, yeah, Kevin, your taste buds do not fail you, my friend.
Yeah. Nailed it.
Yep. That one's an easy one to give away.
The
so
seismograph says.
Yeah, that one's really hard. It's kind of hard to not kind of show, but it is. It is peated. It is a peated mash bill.
Oh, okay.
So that is, so you're on point there, which I think Ryan and I have said a few times before. Peated might not be our favorite thing, but this one isn't overly peated. We've had some other ones that were just like, get it out of here.
Yeah, it's a lot more sweet. It's almost like a barbecue smoke, hickory kind of smoky flavor versus like a lot of times when I drink peated Scotch, I feel like I'm eating a twig or smelling burnt wood. Just this is definitely like more like pulled pork flavors for me, like sweet, spicy, savory, fatty, like kind of oily. Yeah, there's a lot of good things going on here.
I could see you almost mistaking this for like a toasted finish.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's pretty, and I think from a recipe perspective, it's pretty light. It's in the lower. Yeah, it's in the lower percentages.
Yeah. So actually, if you
got
it. Over the repetitions of this recipe over the years so far, we've made this recipe kind of tweaks to it over time to kind of see where it falls in the range. And usually that peated malt's around like 13, 14, maybe 15%. So you're right. It is pretty subtle, but I think you guys are picking up on something with the other grains, honey malt and naked oat malt, which kind of fill out that sweetness. And I think, based on the comments, are probably making it more seem like sweet barbecue than like just pure smoke. And I think that's really cool to just see that recipe express itself in that way. And I love the comment on toasted barrel, because I get that same thing, but I think it's because of those three specialty malts kind of working together, expressing something that is like a toast. But because of honey malt's kind of light toast, the naked oat malt coming across as kind of like sweet and confectionery, and then the peated malt still having a little sweet aspect in there, but a little smoky. The combination of the three make it seem toasty in a way.
Yeah,
Really
it
cool.
balances out really well with the sweetness and the smoke. It's a nice balance. It's not too overpowering either way. They complement each other.
Appreciate all the feedback, guys.
These are a lot of fun, really.
Yeah, and that's so I'll put that so anybody that doesn't know. So pretty much all these ones that we're trying tonight, they're all 4-grain mash bills that are going into it. So 4-grain, well, who knows? Maybe 5-grain will be the new 4-grain here in a few years. But 4-grain's the new 3-grain right now.
Yeah, and I do want to note that, because I mean, I guess I want to, when it comes to talking about 4 grains and talking about Solera barrel, talking about small batch, these are all phrases and things that are growing in popularity. And most of the time, you really see a brand get behind one or another, and they're really pushing the 4-grain aspect, or they're really pushing the Solera barrel aspect, which there's not a ton of out there, or they're really pushing the small batch aspect. I can go on and on, whether it's non-chill filtered or unfiltered, etc. We really pride ourselves on touching so many elements of what makes a kind of a robust and complex flavor profile throughout this process, that I think, I don't know, some people are kind of surprised to see, like, hey, why isn't 4-grain larger on your label, or why isn't Solera barrel larger on your label? Why don't, when I pick this bottle up, why don't I instantly know that it's a Solera barrel? You got to turn the bottle around and you got to read. And if you read the label on the back of it, we actually put everything that I'm mentioning on the back. But we truly believe philosophically that one of these things isn't greater than the other, and that they're working together in harmony to create our own unique flavor profile. And so that is the reason that you don't see something really dominantly displayed like that on the front of our package.
Grant, you gave Tim some great talking points there.
Yeah, I blacked out.
We're drinking the Kool-Aid.
I just blacked out. No idea.
I was like, you sound like the master distiller.
Yeah, trust me, I'm simply I'm what they call a parrot. So I just follow Grant around and I take little tidbits from whatever he says, and then I regurgitate them, and people think I'm really smart. They have no idea how dumb I actually am.
You fooled me.
You know what I'm saying?
That's hilarious.
What made you guys kind of want to test out these, these different grains? Was there, were you experimenting with them? I know there was some kind of process. It didn't just happen by accident, but
it's a great question. It goes back to kind of the root, both philosophically and my background. When I joined the company, I came from brewing. I came from the craft beer world, and in that world, it is a different world. But in some cases, when you translate it to distilling, you realize that there's both similarities and differences, but then also opportunities to translate ideas from one industry to another into it. And the one thing we touched on the story of like where we've been on the podcast a year and a half ago was that, you know, my first experience with the brand was this motto, rules are good, change them. And it was kind of, to me, like a sign that we could push the boundaries if we wanted to. So we opened up an experimental distillery just to start the company. And to me, that was a symbol that we wanted to create something new and interesting, and didn't necessarily have to be bound by very specific principles, but maybe major principles. And then like we minor on like just punk rock or like figuring it out ourselves. And when we started this place, like I mentioned before, it's a barrel a week. The risk is relatively low. I mean, there's a huge financial risk from the company's perspective, like where we're going for the future. But all things considered, we had really low risk compared to opening up a 32 barrel distillery right off the bat. Neither one of us were ready. I don't think either one of us were probably ready for that.
No.
And
I think we might have failed.
Yeah. And looking back, we're like, well, thank goodness we started there, because we had this opportunity to figure stuff out from day one. And coincidentally, day one, actual day one, we replicated the 1816 recipe, which was a 75-21-4, 75% corn, 21% rye, 4% malted barley, generically speaking. But every single barrel after that, from 2 to 100 and beyond, have mostly, if not like mostly, high malt vibes. And high malt to us, I've tried to explain to people, isn't like malt for some traditional distillers. Malt to our distillers means like spice. It's a generic term to describe something very broad in character. So we realized that malt was kind of our place it was the first ingredient. It wasn't necessarily the most important part of the process, but it was a foundational element to what we were going to express. So if we could dabble in that and figure out what kind of dynamic range we were working with to start, maybe we could make something that said something on the edge, on the fringes of bourbon. We wanted to be bourbon, but we wanted to kind of say something else. And that's where this malt thing came from. That's where a lot of these recipes came from, was ordering in dozens of these things at a time and tasting each one, looking back to experience from brewing on specialty beer styles, and trying to kind of translate that into a bourbon framework. Does that answer your question?
I forgot what the question was. Can you start over again?
How did you get into malt?
That's what I do.
By the way,
basically like where these recipes came from, and why they're this is how I interpret it, why they're influenced so heavily with malt or ingredient focused.
I now remember they were the two easiest guests, because you ask one question and they both just talk.
Oh,
while Grant was talking, I just looked over him and realized that we are wearing exactly the same thing. Like exactly. We're both wearing dark gray hoodies with gray pants and Nike sneakers. And it's just that, dude, that's how we roll, man. That's how we roll.
What's your name merged together? Grant.
We put it
like
Grim. Oh, it's Grim.
Yeah.
Grim. It's really
Grim.
Grim.
Yeah. I love it.
That's how you need to. That's how you two know you're made for each other.
We
hold me.
We look real.
Look deeply into each other's eyes. Let everybody really know.
So I want to pick your ear really quick, Kenny. You probably, if you need to move on, I won't ask a question, Kenny. But
well, let's do a little bit of barrel, and then you can ask your question about that.
Okay.
All right. Let's do that. So going back to these, I'll tell you what. So I'll kind of give some of the tasting notes that I kind of got of like. So on I thought it just tasted, like smoking a cigar, like right out of there. It's powerful, it's bold, had a little bit of bite to it, stuff like that. B, I really want to like, it's super sweet, a little bit of oaky, viscous, and oily. It just misses a little bit of a finish, but maybe it's just because I go from like A to B, and that's why like it doesn't seem as long. But I'm doing my best to try to take a break and then go back to B and see if it's there. So this is my stalling phase.
Yeah, I feel like B's got a very interesting finish. I mean, it is hard to go between these three because they're so different. And so you're like, you taste one, you're like, I like that style. And then you taste the other, I like that style. And then you like that style. For A, for me, I get like some, burnt orange, some really good mulling spices. It's sugary. I'm getting some cobbler flavors. I'm getting like a peach brandy note on there too.
Ooh.
On A. And then on B, I'm getting like a lot of herbal aromatics, kind of root beer, brown sugar, some cherry, like Aperol. And then like, I don't know, the finish just reminds me of like a Boulevardier or something, like some, nice kind of aromatic bitter flavors on the end. And then C's the pulled pork barbecue for me.
What about you, Kevin? How you feeling? What's kind of stacking up for you over here?
Yeah, I went A to C, and then I went C to A, and everything really kind of changed, like really screwed me up because I tasted A. And I was like,
yeah, it's
I don't know. And then
it's the best
B
way to do this.
Yeah, B was really fruity. I think C is obviously is one of the most. I think it's the unique one of the group.
Totally.
I just don't know if that's everyone's kind of, it's their taste profile.
It doesn't matter. It's your day.
Yeah, no, I really like going from, I thought A was going to be my least favorite, tasting through them A to C, and then I come back to it. It's like, for me, it's like almost like a liquid almond joy, like coconut, chocolate, like almonds. Is kind of what I get. I really like A.
Which one was that from? A.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the first thing I picked up when we first tried it. And going back,
A is probably the most like bourbon-y, I would think.
Well, they're all bourbon.
Well, I know they're all bourbon, but like, that safe.
I know what you mean there too.
It's safe profile.
Like safe profile, whereas the other two are. I mean, there's some interesting things with A, but B and C are really interesting.
What do you think about B? Like, what's it make you think that it might not fit a typical bourbon profile?
I mean, it does on the front end, but those bitter flavors, like root beer, sassafras, kind of
Definitely root beer. No,
like kind of flavors, just kind of make it a little more unique for me on that. Like I said, it reminds me of a Boulevardier or something, like Campari, Aperol, Italian kind of bitter core flavors on there.
Because I'm not a big fan of Boulevardiers because they're super bitter. I'm just not a fan of them. This one I really enjoy. I really like.
Yeah, it's faint. It's not like so overpowering with a Boulevardier, but yeah,
yeah.
It does definitely has that like the cocktail.
There it is.
There it is. Welcome to Chattanooga.
That's awesome.
I can't avoid it. Always here.
Yeah, I had to tip the conductor to do that.
You're like, I'm going to be recording betwing 9 and 10.
Dude,
There's even a bell. There's even a bell.
It runs between 9 and 10. I knew this was going to happen.
Ding, 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 ding.
It's almost like B. You just shake it with ice and pour it, and it's a cocktail. Like, I'm getting a lot of cocktail notes out of it.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Nailed it.
I'll mute because it might get louder from time to
Yeah. So everybody was waiting on that kind of it brings us back when the first time we did a whiskey quickie with it, right? I mean, you're doing the choo-choo single with it or signal with it.
Yeah, my kids love that damn, that choo-choo, Chattanooga choo-choo. It's like, all it is train cars, and they're like, let's go to the Chattanooga choo-choo. And I'm like, all it is train cars. There is a beer store in one of them, or a beer bar. It's like, so I can go get some beers and walk around.
For sure.
train bomb.
Mm-hmm. All right. So Ryan, you were going to ask a question, and then I think we
about blending. So blending these has to be really tough because they are so, from my short stint of my blending career, about a year, I've found, a little will change a lot. I mean, when you're blending these, do you have like a base flavor and then kind of add as like a majority flavor and then kind of add the flavors that you're thinking? And I guess how hard is it, because these are also wildly different, to kind of balance each other out?
It really is. It's a labor of love in that, I think we've encountered plenty of blends that were not the team collectively. Maybe a couple folks are like, we like that, but collectively we kind of have to listen to the whole group. And some blends don't really hit on all the marks that we want collectively, whether it's mouthfeel, aromatic peaks of, whether it's sweet or reminiscent of like certain spices, whatever. It's a challenge to not throw things out of balance. So generally speaking, how we roll with it is we start with a group of like, let's say around 6 different blends that are pretty far apart. And then we start to focus that group into a couple. So we kind of narrow the field. It's kind of like, 64 kind of narrowing to the final 4, where you narrow this range about what it takes to make something that the group kind of agrees on is the tone that we're kind of feeling for that season. And then by the end, you're really just tweaking on like the important parts. So we do bend to each other. Some of our distillers and tasters, they're really sensitive to certain compounds. So we found that particularly when the wheated recipe was in high amounts, when it worked with other whiskeys, it gave more of a strong kind of tingly mouthfeel. And for some folks that was great. And for others, it was right on the edge. So we tried to work within all those balances to kind of just keep on narrowing. And, when it comes down to it, it's hard. You don't want to have a golden tongue in the group. So I typically try to remove myself from the...
Is that Tim, the golden tongue?
Yeah. I'm more the plastic tongue or something.
I mean, there is a kind of an industry... I don't know. When I first entered the industry, even in brewing, there was kind of a sense that, I don't want to put this the wrong way, but some folks have better palates or more refined palates than others. And I think there's more trained palates than others, but I think everybody just has a different palate. So what we're trying to do is train each one of our distillers to recognize certain notes so that they can feel confident in what they're detecting. And it's a very democratic system, I guess was what I'm trying to say. It's not death by committee, because collectively we all have to love it, but we keep on narrowing until the group is kind of like nodding into a headbang,
We've got we have distillers that are definitely a lot more traditional bourbon forward. They're looking for traditional bourbon forward notes, So for example, like the difference between bottled and bond, the spring vintage versus the fall, one appealed significantly more to traditional bourbon lovers than the other. And so, I think what Grant's saying is you've got some of our distillers that are just hardcore, some of our crazier high malt recipes that are a little wilder, and they want to see something a little more exploratory and I guess innovative within the bourbon world, and some that want to see something a little more down, the middle of the road when it comes to bourbon. And bringing those together, I think, or at least talking it out, has been really beneficial to us.
Yeah, at least like acknowledging maybe the spring can be this and the fall can be that.
Yeah,
we found ways to compromise even when there wasn't agreement. Yeah. So you got to.
I'll give you your blend this year. You give me mine. That
Yeah, right. I think that's true.
I love it.
Yeah, and my opinion changed actually between the two BIBs, which again, like we're all bringing it back to these samples because they are bringing together these elements. But like my opinion of spring versus fall kind of shifted. Maybe it was based on like outside input, but it's also a feeling of the season too.
Are you
Like
saying, are you saying you're a fall guy now?
yeah, I'm a fall guy now.
Dude, are you serious? You're gonna leave me like that?
Yeah.
All
Fall
right.
guy.
All right.
Way to
Fine.
vote over there.
Yeah.
Fine. I mean, I knew I was in the minority, but I thought it was cool that you were with me in the minority. And now I'm
Once he saw that foliage, he was like, wow.
Yeah.
Grant loves the seasons.
Yeah.
Oh man!
Is that,
All right, y'all ready to start trying to figure out which one to move forward with here?
I think so.
I think so.
Ryan, I was about to say, I was like, you didn't look too confident there.
Which person?
Well, no, I said Ryan.
Oh, I didn't. It kind of cut out on me.
Oh, okay, there you go. I was like, what? I was like, there's another Ryan here. Like, what am I missing? So I'll put it out there. Do you all think C should move forward? I'm kind of gonna say no to that one.
C's out for me too. Yeah.
Okay.
I will. I don't want C, but I will say this. This is the only probably peated, something with peat in its name that I would drink ever. So congratulations.
No, that's
Like,
awesome. Thanks, man.
Yeah.
Because normally you put peat in something, I'm like, send it back. This was really good. It was good.
Yeah, I was about to say. I was like, I saw it and I was like, okay, well, we'll give it a try. I'll give it a try. I didn't taste it before here, but I tasted it. I was like, oh, it's peat. It's peat. But I'm just not the biggest fan of it. But that's okay. There's definitely people that are, and I think that's probably the easiest way to start doing gateway Scotch drinkers into this world as well, is by giving them something like that, because that is one way to start getting people tasting bourbon.
yeah. Just to not to interrupt there, but it is amazing how little of that ingredient you can put in that like all of a sudden shifts the balance. You guys mentioned the blending difficulty of that edge, and that particular bourbon, that recipe is a very tough one to balance.
And we've worked with a few different peated malt suppliers too, right? I mean,
Yeah.
we've explored it in different ways. But yeah,
it's
Love it.
delicate. Yeah.
Right on. All right. So what do you all want to do? Do you want to do kind of like raised hands between A and B, or you just want to?
This one's tough. I don't know. I really like both of them.
I know.
I'm just gonna make Kevin pick because I could be happy with either one.
I mean,
my number one pick was B. I love B. Like as it sat in the glass, it just
My man, that's the one I liked, but
the finish really went on. Yeah, like it's like a cocktail in the glass as it is. All those like kind of, I get a lot of bitters notes, like citrus. I mean, it's opened up really nicely as it's
it keeps unpacking more and more.
Yeah.
So we got one vote for B.
You get 2 for B. Sorry.
You think 2 for B? You think that's what it is? I mean, honestly, I was scared that you all were going to choose A, because that was I felt is definitely way more, bourbon focus. It's got, the almond joy, it's got the chocolate, it's got everything like that. But B brought a much different characteristic that I really enjoyed. And
I feel like
and once we steer the proofs on these things, I already know what Ryan's going to say. He's going to go, it's a guzzler. And it's exactly what it is. So you all ready to reveal what they were?
Let's do it.
All right. So C, which we had passed on, is the peated recipe. So mash profile B004. However, this one, you can't see it, had a proof of 121.2, and it was 4 years, 4 months, and 4 days when it was pulled.
Did you say 121?
That does not drink like that proof.
121. 121.
Wow.
That's insane.
No.
All right.
He was
So
very
A,
approachable for 121.
I
Yeah.
know.
Awesome.
So A, which came in second place. This is Mash Profile SB091. So this is their 91 profile. This is their kind of flagship offering. 120.1 proof, and it was pulled at 4 years, 1 month, and 27 days. So
that's dangerous right there.
Well, and see, that's what I as soon as I saw that, I was like, well, of course we're going to choose the 91 proof. That's why they chose the 91 proof, because it's the best. It's the best mash bill. But I'm so glad we chose something a little bit different. So we had chose Mash Profile B005, which is the wheated mash bill.
Wow.
And so this is yellow corn, malted wheat, caramel malted wheat, and oak smoked malted wheat. So
No kidding.
You've got
That's
that.
wild.
And it came in just shy of 120 at 119.7. And this one is actually the youngest of all three, 3 years, 10 months, and 8 days. But guys, just go ahead and hold that until it hits 4 for us, will you?
Yeah, that's the plan.
It's gonna happen. Yeah.
All right, good deal.
We'll definitely be a spring people, but
But
So
yeah,
I think it
I'm
turned
blown away to hear those stats.
four
That's
in mid-December, I'm pretty sure.
sounds good. Like I said, we'll hold it till it gets 4, and then we'll feel good about it. But that was, like I said, I'm super glad we chose the wheated, because I think it was a little bit different. I love the 91. It just has
oh yeah,
all the robustness and everything that I think really appeals to the vast majority of bourbon drinkers. And this one, I mean, now that I tell you, are you guys like, okay, I get it. It's a wheater. It's a wheater. It tastes like a wheater.
No, I thought it was.
No,
really
it doesn't.
Cool. I thought it
Really?
was cool that you guys were. Just how you described it and saying that, like, man, I was scared you guys were going to pick A, because it's kind of like, of course you would pick A. It's their flagship recipe. It checks a lot of the boxes for bourbon drinkers, and even Kevin, you saying chocolate and coconut. I mean, those are two of Grant's tasting notes for 91. He even has coconut in there. But the fact that you did want something a little bit different, that's what we love about. Sorry, I know you guys are here. There you go. My screen blanked out on me. That's what we love about this program. For us, there's no wrong answer, and the fact that it's wheated, it's malted wheat. There's 3 different. There's multiple varieties of malted wheat. So it's not your typical wheated bourbon by any stretch. It's pretty far from it. But what's really fun to do is to explore actually just chewing on different malted wheats straight out of the one bag and seeing how much flavor they have to offer. Versus maybe like a traditional, wheat, raw wheat. It's pretty different, and but it's cool. It's cool that people get to explore this, and I know that it does satisfy a lot of wheated fans out there at the same time. So
Yeah, there's definitely a connection we've seen with our high rye malt recipes compared to our high wheat malt recipes. They share the same correlation between high rye bourbons and high wheat bourbons. So
yep.
I think that, regardless of traditional or untraditional, the contrast holds the same, and you guys have you've picked up on that here.
Yep.
So
Did I also hear there was smoked oak in that one?
yeah, so oak smoked malt. It's a German oak smoked wheat malt. Environment makes it, and they're an amazing maltster. But surprisingly, when we first used that in one of our first experimental wheated recipes, we were surprised to not detect that much smoke, if any. And as it got older, it got kind of fruitier and more spicy and more herbal. And that's kind of one of the artifacts of smoking a wheat malt, because it doesn't have a husk traditionally like a barley malt does. It holds on to smoke in different ways, and how it evolves and oxidizes over time is also really different. So what you would get out of a smoked barley, whether it's peated or beech smoked or pecan smoked or any kind of smoke, those absorb smoke in a different way than something like wheat does, which doesn't have a husk in a traditional sense. It's really wild. But over time, it produces just like, to me, more fruit forward stuff. But it's cool to hear other folks weigh in on like how that evolution happens.
And it's funny. Everybody's like, you said malted wheat. Now we just say malted wheat. I said malted wheat 3 times. So what goes into this mash bill was yellow corn, malted wheat, caramel malted wheat, and oak smoked malted wheat. So definitely a unique mash bill. You know, no barley in there at all. So very, very cool, and definitely an interesting profile. I loved it. I mean, this was fun.
Like my sample ball's pretty much gone.
Oh, mine's cached. I'm totally gone.
That's honestly, when I knew it was the one.
What I was doing is I grabbed my 111 and I was comparing it to A.
Cool.
Because I was like, oh gosh, like, okay, it's close. It's really good. It's really good. But I was like, the 111, you can tell it's proofed down just a little bit because it removes and it makes it a little bit more palatable to a general audience.
Yeah.
And A is just, I mean, it's just a little more amplified of it. I'm just so glad that you all like B as well, because I was leaning towards that way, but I was like, I'm prepared to accept A if that's what it came down to.
Yeah, A was the safe one, but B was. I'm glad Kevin came out of the gate with that. I was like, it was so good.
For sure.
Those fruit notes definitely come through, like you were saying. Right.
Yeah, I know. That fruit and herbal note.
Fruit, yeah.
Maybe it's just because I watched Snoop Dogg before.
All right, so instead of 111 and blunts, it's wheat and blunts. How about that?
Yeah.
All right,
I'm
so
sure they'd love that.
Well, hey, everybody stick on here for 1 second. We'll go ahead and kind of close this down here for a second. But I do want to say thank you for everybody that tuned in. I think out of everybody that was either in or out or popping in and out, we had somewhere around 50 viewers tonight. So awesome. Thank you all so much for being a part of this and kind of sticking with us and watching through. And honestly, I think it's great when we're able to have guys like Tim and Grant on to be able to sort of share, you know, what they're doing and everything like that as well, because we most of the time it's just me and Ryan on here and we're just trying to figure out, hey, how can we burn up an hour talking about tasting notes? But having you all come on and kind of share some more insight into the program, into the whiskeys and stuff like that, it's always very valuable. So guys, thank you so much for joining on and taking some time out of your day to be here with us too.
Yeah, Grant's got so much knowledge and Tim's a great parrot. No, I'm kidding.
No, it's I own it.
Thank you so much for the feedback too. We're in it for the same reasons you guys are. It's just a love of the details, and you know, that's what keeps us coming into work every day, is trying to understand what we do more. And we love it, and we love that you guys love it. So we're just appreciative of that. Thank you.
For sure.
Yeah, awesome job, guys. It's really good, and it's got to be a lot of fun being, you know, having something unique and be able to say like, this is us. So kudos to you all.
Yeah, thanks
a lot.
And one last kind of little plug for anybody that's watching and you're like, how did I find this? Why am I watching this? I just clicked on a link. If you didn't know, we are this is Bourbon Pursuit. This is part of our private barrel club. We do somewhere around 50 barrels every single year for selections and be able to allow people like you all to taste them and try them and buy bottles yourself and actually, you know, be like Kevin over here and join us on barrel picks, whether they're virtual or whether they're in person. You can go to bourbonpursuit.com. There is going to be a link at the very top that says Barrel Club, and you can come here and you can see all the picks that we've been kind of been doing this time of year, what's coming and everything like that. And of course, this will be coming around in 2022. So you can look forward to another awesome kind of big start in 2022 is getting your hands on a Chattanooga barrel. So make sure you go and check that out. But with that, guys, like I said, stick here for a second. I'm going to close the stream, but I just want to say thank you again for everybody that tuned in. Glad you enjoyed it. And yeah, stick around. We've got more podcasts coming out this week, and we've got another barrel pick on Friday. So a lot of things happening. Cheers, everybody.